Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody? That I can't fix. But can everybody hear me okay? It echoes in here sometimes when we've had events here before, so that's why I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So this is pretty free-flowing. I usually just answer questions. I don't have any big speech or anything like that. Just say that things in Orland Park are going great. Our parks, our roads, you name it. It's going very, very well. It's operating well. It's took some time, over 7 years. The first 2 years, it was nothing but fights. And then the last 5 years, really getting a lot of good stuff put in. So, again, can everybody hear me? No. All the noise.
It's not super loud, but...
Let's put this up here. Here, wait. Here, let's grab a chair. Let's put it on the chair. Is this better? Is this better at all? All right, well, I'll try using this, and hopefully this will be better. But so, as I was saying, it's pretty free-flowing. I answer questions. Last 7 years, so the first couple were a big challenge. I'm not going to rehash it. Everybody kind of lived through it, especially me. But the last 5 years, we've gotten a lot done with our roads, with our parks. Our police department does a fantastic job. I'm not going to reiterate the whole state of the village and all of that. So I'm really here just to answer your questions. And usually at these events that go on for 2 hours, usually I get at least an hour and a half's worth of questions. So with that, I'll kind of open it up. But a woman walked through here and just handed this and said, "I wrote it all down," and then left. So she apparently has questions. So she has Centennial Park West amphitheater suggestions, mosquito abatement. Yeah, we contact Cook County Mosquito Abatement for that place, so we do that. Tune into radio to hear microphone and broadcast. I'm not exactly sure what she's talking about on that because we don't have a radio station, so I'm not sure what she's talking about there. Seal the amphitheater concrete. It will stay cleaner and last longer. Our concrete guys know the specs of all the concrete that needs to go in. And concrete, first off, you can't seal it right after it's put in. So we'll take care of that as far as how to handle the concrete, and I'll leave that to our experts in public works. ADA drop-off ability, along with parking and ADA bathrooms. We have ADA drop-off at the west entrance. We have ADA parking. We also have ADA bathrooms out there. When we do porta potties, we always have ADA bathrooms. So all those things we have. Add large visual screens eventually. That's on the, hopefully next year we'll have that. So because the stage is low and visibility from the back is poor. Well, the stage is not low, and it goes up. Actually, the incline is ADA incline. Any incline bigger than that would be against the law for ADA. So it'd be much steeper than that. So it's actually done the way it is. But we do know that putting up, when you're way back, obviously you're way back. You're a long way from the stage. So we will put up some screens on the side. What is going on with the Chase Bank location at 1800 South Wolf Road? I don't know what's going on there. Somebody's coming in with a petition, but I haven't seen that petition, so they're putting a business in there. I don't know what it is. When will the water tower at 179th and Wolf finally be painted? It's scheduled to be painted this year. We're waiting to finish the one by Centennial Park West. They have to put all of the cell tower stuff and all that. So sometime the next month, that's going to be started. That was our biggest water tower, so we got all the other ones done first because that one's about 3 times the size of all the others. So the water towers, just so you know, they hadn't been repainted in 20-some years. We had to do all 7 of them. It was about $8 million that was kind of left in our lap. And what they had done about 10 years before, actually 5 years before I arrived, is they put a sealant on it. Back to like sealing the concrete, they put a sealant that was supposed to make it last for 20 years. Not only did it last for 20 years, then it required us to sandblast it off to paint. So a bit of a challenge there. But anyways, they're all going to be done. The last one will be done this year. So those were her questions. I guess she didn't want to stick around to hear the answers. So, but with that, I'll open it up to questions, and I'll try to repeat them.
What was the profit or loss before the concert held at Centennial Park West?
I don't. We don't run it for a profit and loss, so I haven't looked at that, and finance hasn't run that. But we do those concerts for everyone's enjoyment. We don't run the village as a profit and loss center or as a business. So nor do we run the concert that way. The development at 100. There's no redevelopment that I'm aware of at 142nd and LaGrange. Now, are you talking about the triangle at 143rd and LaGrange? So that went to the Planning Commission 3 weeks ago and was approved at the Planning Commission, and it comes to the Committee of the Whole on August 5th, and then 2 weeks later it'll go to the board. So there's been a plan submitted. It's a combination of retail, restaurants, and some entertainment uses as well, and office space. Any idea when that'll break ground? Any idea when the triangle will break ground? So, there'll be some work done this year because one of the things we also inherited was, I don't know how many of you, how many of you are developers? Probably not many, but all of you probably know that generally utilities are run along the edges of your properties, not down the middle. Well, the village ran a lot of utilities through the middle of these parcels. So we have to spend a bunch of money to move those. So that'll get started to move those to the edges of the parcels. So once that's done, so that'll start this year. Whether or not they break ground, I am not sure whether they'll break ground or not. I'm sure they're going to break ground in the spring, but I doubt they'll get there this year because it's not going to be approved until late August. By the time they get everything else done, they probably won't have much done, but they're supposed to do things in the spring. That's the plan. I know they want to get moving as fast as possible because they do have a bunch of people that are ready to sign leases once we get the project approved.
So the dumpster ordinance in Orland Park is not being enforced. Dumpsters supposed to have 3 opaque walls and a gate. It's very unsightly. I will give you examples. The strip mall, 8600 West 139th Street, broken enclosure, large dumpsters without gates. Lover's Lane, same thing, not enclosed properly. Orland Drive, the condos over there, huge dumpster, not enclosed. It used to be enclosed. Condos on Treetop, the condos on Shady Lane, broken enclosures, wood laying on the ground. It's just.
So if you give those to Bonnie, where's Bonnie? Where you at? Give those to Bonnie. We'll have our code enforcement look at it.
Okay.
As you can imagine, we have 22,000 homes and we have 22 square miles. So our enforcement officers, basically, if we have something reported to us, they check it out. We do enforce enclosures. Our development services department requires enclosures. Jeff is with the mall, and have businesses here been cited and fined for enclosures? Yes. So we do that, but there's also a legal process that has to be followed too. So if people fight it, it can end up in court, in Cook County courts. It can take months. Generally, that doesn't happen. Usually people comply, but it doesn't always happen.
It just makes our town look unsightly.
So we understand, which is why we enforce it. But I know I drove around town the other day, and actually Sunday and Monday, and into our old neighborhoods, and they all look fantastic. So I think generally they look fantastic. We always have issues. At 22 square miles, we're going to have issues. We're going to have people that don't take care of stuff. But we spend a lot of time in. Where's Chuck? I mean, we do a lot of code enforcement, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So we have a lot of people working code enforcement all the time. So, and we do so much code enforcement that we've gone from one court hearing date to 2 every month to handle all of those code enforcement cases. So we certainly are well aware of it, and they get fined, and most people come into compliance, but some people don't. And if they don't, it can literally take years for us to go through the legal process through the county.
I'm really happy to hear that the 159th and LaGrange corner recently sold, and that's going to be developed. Do you have any time frame on that?
I don't have any time frame on developers and how fast they bring us plans. They did pay into an escrow for a potential TIF, which we were interested in TIFing that area because there's a road that has to connect there's a road that has to connect from Ravinia to LaGrange by Costco, and so that's one of the things we want to make sure we get done, so the TIF would help pay for that road. What we've seen from them, it's retail, restaurants, office. That's what we've seen from them. It's an interesting site in the fact that Costco offered to buy it. My understanding is when they bought the other property, they offered to buy it years ago for the asking price of about $20 million, and the owner then raised the price because it was Costco, and then he just sold it for like 10 or 12. So I guess that's just shows what happens when you try and grab too much. So because Costco had originally wanted that site, and they ended up moving over.
Two things. The Michael Schofield Park is just wonderful. It is so refreshing. You see so many kids and teens and families using it on a regular basis. What a beautiful spot it is. Second thing, we noticed a little bit the Sears parking lot is good. Is something happening to the Sears inside building?
So there's two comments here. One is about the Michael Schofield Sports Complex at Schuessler Park, which is this right here. Maybe I'll try and move this so that maybe I'll just carry it around with me. Anyways, so for those of you who don't know, this is the Schuessler Park redevelopment that we did. About half of it was stormwater improvements. This park used to flood all the time. So we fixed. So basically, we fixed all the flooding problems. Anyone who was out there and saw this, 2/3 of this has water storage underneath. So we've had tons of rain at times since this has been built, and the field's playable immediately. When before, if we even got a sprinkle, everything flooded over there. So it's been fantastic, and the comment was there's kids over there playing all the time. Yes, there are. Yesterday I saw a soccer team, football team was practicing. It's fantastic, it's beautiful. One of many things that, it was attacked over for, a year. How could you be spending the money on this? Well, this park was built in 1960s. It was actually built by volunteers. It was donated it was the first time we had the developer of Fairway donated this land. Of course, he donated the worst land to build on. And back then, what happened is all of the people who lived here, the hardware store donated all the fencing, the sod farm donated all the sod, and the people basically built this park. But it had never been redeveloped since. So we went in, we dredged the pond, we put all this in. There is the future ADA playground that's going to go in over here as well. And there's sledding hill they're still working on now. They also added parking over here to add a little bit more parking to what we already have. But it is a beautiful, beautiful field, lots of kids playing on it, which is exactly what we want to see. And again, we haven't run a profit and loss on it, but it's something that we don't run it for profit and loss. We do charge for the fields for teams to use it, not for kids to use it, obviously, but for teams for scheduled practices. They do pay a fee for it to offset some of our costs, but it's fantastic. So, and the second question is the Sears parking lot. So Sears was purchased in auction from Seritage, who went under during COVID. The best I can say is that we have no idea what they plan to do, because everything they come to us, we're like, there's no way you're doing that. So we don't know what's going on, but they did at least make it look a little nicer by doing some seal coating and stuff like that. So at least it looks a little bit better. And I don't know, are they fixing anything else?
Right now they demoed the interior. I've heard something about a roof, but they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they demoed the interior of the building, and then they've got roof work to do and other things to do as well. So we have some ideas that we'd like them to explore, but we can't. It's basically a billionaire, a billionaire and his wife has another business, and she bought this sight unseen from California. So that's kind of what we have going on. So believe me, the mall, the owners of the mall, the owners of the Von Mauer and Macy's, we all want to see that redeveloped, but we can't force someone to do something. So, but we can stop them from doing things we don't like. So, can we get the music turned off? Go. Yes. So the question was the virtual immersion museum. So yes, we've heard of them, and we've had them proposed here, and financially they are an absolute disaster, which is why none have gone in. So no one can financially make that work. So, but yeah, we're aware of them.
Is there any plan to change the status of unincorporated part of Orland Park, meaning 159 and Will
So the question is about unincorporated parts of Orland Park. So for those of you who've been paying attention to our board meetings, we've been basically annexing a lot of properties and trying to clean up our borders. There's a lot of areas that are completely surrounded by Orland Park that benefit from everything Orland Park has. There's also a lot of potential commercial properties that Cook County would allow anything to be put in there. And so we're making sure that those are prioritized first. I'm not sure exactly what spot you're talking about. If you're talking about like
159 and Will Cook.
yeah, 159th and Will Cook.
Juanita Drive is a small street. On the
Yeah, so Juanita Drive is probably not on our radar at this particular juncture, as well as we're not going to Pinewood or any of that, because those properties, I mean, there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars of upgrades that need to be done, and the village is not going to bear that cost. We're doing them in the areas where we're going to make sure that commercial buildings, like there's places along Wolf Road that are a mess, that are don't look very nice, that are Cook County, and that we would like to incorporate. There's some properties, so things that Cook County could put in there. They could put in a strip club. They could put in gaming establishments, cannabis dispensaries, all these things we don't have. We're trying to make sure those get annexed so that they can't put those things in. So we're doing that, and then some houses that are surrounded as well. So there's certain things we can annex ourselves because we surround them. Other things it takes different processes to do.
Wolf Road, on the east side, basically buildings, North North. There's the old Mexican restaurant. Is that next to the car room? And then I got the big containers.
This is again about Wolf Road and the annexation. There's a couple properties in there that are Orland, but most of them are unincorporated. The Mexican restaurant is Orland Park, but it's in a flood zone, so no one can redevelop it. So that's a problem. Joey's is not in Orland Park. The area with the containers that you're talking about, I know it's Inoder property. We know it well. It's zoned it was in Will County zoned R1, which is residential. Now he can continue to operate what he has there, but Will County had rezoned it to R1, so that's residential. Well, he started putting trucks. There were complaints filed. Will County's response was, the Will County Board's response was, they spot zoned it from R1 to I2, which is heavy manufacturing. Mokina and Orland testified at the zoning hearings. We opposed it, and yet they jammed it in. And so there's unfortunately nothing. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it at the present time. But yeah, the Will County Board was not. For them to go, it takes something in the middle of Orland Park and make it I2, which we have nothing in Orland Park that's I2. And there's no I2 anywhere near it. That's actually illegal, but we'll get to fighting that when it makes sense to. Right now it doesn't make sense to, because he's not going anywhere anyways, because he can do what he's doing because he's grandfathered in.
Plans for the area that is the former Andrew Corporation.
So the former Andrew Corporation site, that site is, as you might imagine, a 1940s manufacturing facility, has a lot of chemical issues there. It's been cleaned according to the state to a commercial. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's basically been cleaned to a commercial standard, so commercial property could go there. That it has been purchased from the folks that purchased Andrew Corporation, and they do have plans to build there. They actually want to do residential, which is the highest best use for that area. It's another area that we have also started a TIF study on, because we would have to help with the cleanup to make sure it got cleaned up to a residential standard. So there's a lot of cleanup, about $9 million worth of cleanup that needs to happen. And as well, if you think of 151st, it ends at the tracks. We would build an underpass under the tracks to connect into that residential so kids can walk to school. They don't have to go down the busy street, and there's better access for police and fire. So, but that's probably some time. I mean, they've paid an escrow. So basically, the people that bought that are the same ones that bought the PD's 2 site, and they have put money in an escrow to pay for our costs for doing the TIF study. So they are serious, and they do want to do something, but these kinds of developments take time.
On the corner of 151st and 108th Avenue, where that water pump station is, or the housing, or whatever is in there, it was adjacent to the dump area. So, it's kind of right near the left hand side of the corner. Is that Orland or a public space, or is that privately owned?
So the area you're talking about, the pump station, that's Orland Park's pump station. It's a water pump station. The area further to the east, which is where used to be where Public Works stored materials, that's Orland Park's property. The future plans are to extend Centennial Park West and add that to the park. So the plans that have been drawn up for that for the future, and this is when I say future, I'm talking 2028 or beyond. So it's a while. Because we have a lot of other parks that are more pressing, a lot of things that are more prioritized. But so what's been drawn up there for the future for that park is to take that area, which is behind, if you think of Northwestern, and again, this is 2028 or after. What the concept that was drawn there was actually, so you got turf fields here for soccer fields. They were going to do a 4-pack of turf baseball fields there, full-size baseball fields, so like high school, college, so bigger kids could play. But the nice thing about fields that size, you can actually do soccer fields inside of them. So then they can be used for baseball. They can put temporary fences and do softball, but they can also do soccer and lacrosse. So those fields will be able to be used all the time. The nice thing when those are added, at the end of the decade time frame. The nice thing about having those is the same thing with having these, is by adding a few fields like that are always playable, we can start getting to taking 1 or 2 fields offline every year and restoring those fields because they get so much heavy use, but they need them every year, so we can never take them down for a year to get the turf reestablished. So it allows for a lot of maintenance improvements. So that's at least currently, that's the conceptual plan there. So, and then some other minor changes of Centennial Park West over on that side.
What's the plan for the area behind Darwin?
The area behind Darwin.
I know these nature was all taken out.
That's a detention area. That's a natural detention area. And so you're talking about the control burn that was done? That control burn has to be done to control the Phragmites and everything that grows in there. So that gets done every 3 years or so. So all of the native species will start reestablishing again, and hopefully the controlled burns won't have to be done as much as we get that going on. But that's a giant detention area for stormwater. So that's just a native area.
Thank you for pitching in when you found that there was a lag in the permits for the books, and you sat down and did the work.
So I haven't actually sat down and done the work yet. I've offered to sit down and do the work. We're actually getting our trustees. So the question was about the roof permits. So obviously we got hit by a hailstorm just to Orland Park. And normally this time of year we've had about 100 to 120 roof permits. As of last Thursday, we've had 2,600. And so that's a lot for our staff. I mean, obviously you don't staff up for a crisis like that. So we've got people working overtime. We've got people that have moved over to work on those permits. We've thrown extra help. We've tried to hire external help, and we've got a little bit of external help, some consultants to help as well. But there wasn't much availability to try and get through all these. We know, I know the roofers, they're saying, oh, well, it's the Village of Orland Park, and then we find out they didn't even submit the permit yet. So, or they submitted the permit wrong. Believe me, the roofers can't get to 2,600 roofs. So we're doing everything we can to get through it. We're doing a great job. So what he said is thank you for me for pitching in. I offered to pitch in. I have not pitched in because they say, well, there's certain things you need to know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, figure out what we need to know, and then we're happy to help. So one of our trustees actually jumped in because he's got some computer programming capability to write some computer programs to automate some of the stuff inside of our current software, which is going to help speed up the process. And they're setting him up with a laptop and training him up. And then once that gets done, then he's going to basically train the other trustees that are willing to pitch in. But we don't mind pitching in to help and try and get through this backlog because there's still a pretty big backlog. We've been doing a good job, but they're coming in. Last week it was over 100 a day coming in of roof permits, so probably more to come. It should be done this year. I'm not sure the exact date, but it'll be done this year. So that was all part of the water, for those of you who don't know, the water main project. How many of you know about that? So our water system has no redundancy, as is. Meaning that if there's a major water main break, we get no water. So if it happens under the Cal Sag, we could be without water for 5, 6, 7 days. Literally, people would die. So even before I got here, all of the towns were trying to come up with a plan, so they have a second water main coming out. It's going all the way from Oak Lawn to New Lenox. It's about a $300+ million project. Our portion, we also have a portion of that project because it runs, for those of you who have seen over there, it's about 2 blocks to the west of Harlem. You saw going through the Forest Preserve and going through our neighborhoods. That's the main water main. Well, we have to get it to our pump station. So the spur that goes from that water main to the pump station is nearly complete. It's going to be done this year. And that's all on our cost. The overall cost of the project, the village is on the hook for 25% of that cost because we get 25% of the water. So, but that went down Wheeler Drive. It went down some of those areas. Obviously, and a lot of those areas have been repaved, but we didn't repave where the water mains are going because obviously we knew they're going to be dug back up. So that didn't make sense. So some years ago, you might remember, Wheeler, tons of potholes, one of the highest priority roads to get fixed. We didn't actually repair it and rebuild it because we knew this was coming. So we did a 1-inch overlay, which is just a temporary, like 6 or 7 year overlay of asphalt just to get us through. And then, so it's been dug up. What you're going to see is K5 is the company that is doing the restoration for the water project. They're going to do half the road. Now, we were hoping they would do the whole, we were going to pay for the other half of the road to be done at the same time with them, same contractor. Their price was astronomically high, so we're going to use our contractor to do the other half. So you're going to see first half, you'll see one half done first, then you'll see the other half of Wheeler Drive done second. So, but it'll all be done this year.
Hi. I wanted to ask, were there any market studies done on the concert venue? You say that you don't run it like a business, but that doesn't also mean you have to run it at a loss.
So, again, we didn't run it as a business. We ran it. We were already doing concerts out here at this place. So we were already doing concerts out there. What we're doing is building a permanent stage and permanent venue to add to our parks. I mean, just like when we build a ball field, we don't do a market study for the ball field. This is not. It's not about running this as a for-profit venue. It's for a amenity for the people of Orland Park. So that's what it's for. So, and just like all of our parks, you know, so unlike, like Tinley Park has a park district. They separately tax you. Orland Park does not. So all of our parks are part of the Village of Orland Park. So all 66 parks that we have, including Schuessler Park, including John Humphrey, Centennial Park West, all of that is just part of the village budget and part of recreation. Our goal, way back when, was that the park system, that the parks and recreation would be subsidized 52% by our taxes, and the other 48% would be via fees. and offsetting costs. So that was in place for years before I got here. Now, one of the things they planned on doing was bringing that down over time to about 40%. They never brought it down. So we're still looking at that, at potentially bringing it down slowly to where it's a little bit less subsidized by taxes and more user fees. But that's something we're trying to balance all the time. But basically, all of our parks are operated as an amenity for Orland Park. It is obviously not a profit center. Centennial Park West is not a profit center. John Humphrey's not a profit center. None of that stuff. Centennial Park is not. None of that is. It's our bike paths, all of that. They're there for us to enjoy as amenities.
Is there any talks about getting like additional like signage for Centennial Park West? It's kind of touched back there, so.
Yeah, well, so we've talked about some of that. That's why the water tower has Centennial Park West on it. If you've noticed, and that was recently completed, so that's why that's on there. There probably won't be a ton more signage because the people of Orland Park will, it's new, right? So they're going to figure out where it's at, just like Centennial Park, right? So I think, but as far as some wayfinding and stuff as we get there, we probably will address it. I mean, we look at our wayfinding every few years, and we'll figure out what other signage we need, and we're figuring that out, right, as we go. We've done 2 concerts, so we're figuring out what signage we need. And we're always, after every event, staff sits down, they talk about what did we do right, what can we improve to make things better every time. We do that for every event. But
We got a couple people saying that like you kind of miss it driving down 159.
well, in some ways, isn't that the beauty of it, that it's not sitting out there, and that it's just kind of back there quietly. We have tons of parking. We have 3,300 spots over there. I know people have talked about Taste of Orland. They're like, well, where are we going to park? I'm like, you realize that that we actually used the parking lot of the Village Hall to do Taste of Orland before. Humphrey has 220 spots. Humphrey has 220 spots. Centennial Park West has 3,300 spots. We have way more parking, and they're like, well, we have to walk. I'm like, well, right now people are parking at the police station. They're parking at Darvin's. To walk, that's a mile walk. So you're actually in the park and you can walk. So it's, and we do have ADA parking, and we also will have Andrew Corporation, as long as it's not developed. We have an agreement with them. We're using their parking lot, and we're going to run shuttles from there. So if you don't want to walk, because we won't let people walk across 153rd, they're going to have to take a shuttle.
Will there be tents or chairs for the Taste of Orland?
You have to bring your own chairs like you always have, and the tents will be the same tents we've always had, which are vendor tents.
Okay.
So yeah, it's always been bring your own chairs, and you can't bring tents. But
Picnic tables and big
the picnic tables that were out there before will be. I mean, we still have them. They're going to be out there for this one as well. Not exactly sure where they're all located, but they're located around the venue.
Okay.
But there won't be any chairs. There won't be any tents other than the vendor tents, like always. The difference being is that all the vendor tents will be around here and right around the venue, not off to the side.
Are your plans to finish the water tower at 179th and Wolf Road?
So you gave me this. I answered all those up front. So the 179th and Wolf, as I talked about before, the water tower is going to get started, I think, this month. They're finishing up the one over by Centennial Park West. They had 2 to do this year. The one at Centennial Park West was supposed to get done last year. The contractor didn't get done with it. We basically stripped him of the contract, gave it to someone else, but we said that one has to get done first this year. And when they're repainting the outside, they're also doing a lot of interior things as well. And so the one at Centennial Park West, they still need to do that. They need to put the cell phone tower stuff all back up there, and they have to fill it up. So they have to do that. The one on Wolf Road, I believe they've already started putting up the temporary cell towers and all that. So they're already prepping it. That's going to be done this. So you've seen that. So they're already starting it, and that'll be done this year. So, and the reason we did that one last is because it's 3 times bigger than all the others.
At 159th and 94th Ave, southwest corner, I understand there's supposed to be a hotel open up there.
So the 159th and 94th Avenue, so it's between 159th and basically, well, it's 94th Avenue to LaGrange, 159th Avenue to roughly 161st Avenue, so that whole property. was that project was voted down by the board, so they have to resubmit. They do have a hotel they want to put in there by the KFC, which would be a very good addition. We need hotels. We only have 2, so we have 2 across from each other on the Grange. So it was voted down, yeah. Yep, Orland Ridge, yep. So at Orland Ridge, the number of units, I'm going from memory here. I want to say there's like 200 and something. And the density on that's about 5.5 per acre. So it's actually not very dense project in the big scheme of things. So. So Orland Ridge was entirely rental, targeting 55 plus. Targeting, not necessarily, not restricted, but that was the way the project was introduced.
Is it all occupied?
I don't know if it's all occupied yet or not. I don't know if they've got all the buildings done, completely done yet. What's that?
About 76%.
So there, it looks like somebody that knows.
I'm sorry, what is Orland Ridge?
It's along 94th Avenue and 171st. So
Smaller, single level?
it's got ranch homes, villa homes, it's got some townhomes, and it's got some apartment style homes. So it's got a mixture of all. It's got a clubhouse. It's the one sitting behind Silver Cross. So that whole project includes. There was going to be a hotel there too. We haven't seen that come through, but we did see Silver Cross, and Silver Cross has bought the other property next to it, so they're looking to expand that building as well.
You know if the lake's like one in Centennial Park, I know it's not called Centennial Park Lake, it's got a name, but do you know if Orland or the state stocks fish in there?
So the question is, do we stock fish in Centennial Park Lake? So that is actually a detention center, or detention pond. The lake is Lake Sedgwick, which is on the other side, which you can actually see from here looking to the east. But the question is, do we stock them? Yes, we stock several ponds. I think it's in the neighborhood of 13 to 18 ponds every few years. It's not particularly expensive to stock. So all of our ponds were evaluated 4 years ago, which ones can support fish, because they have to be a certain depth and there's a lot of things. And so we evaluated all of our ponds to see which ones in our parks we could actually stock. And all the ones we could, we have. And it's part of our regular plan to stock them.
Is there a list of those ponds?
So anywhere where it says fishing on the village site, so the question was, is there a list of where you can, where the fish are stocked? Anywhere where it says fishing on a park on Orland Park's webpage, has the fish, it's stocked with fish. And like, for example, Schuschler Park, we dredged everything, so they restocked it. So of course the fish will be small right now, but they are restocked.
Thank you. I'm Chris Beal from the Crisis Center in South Suburbia, and I'm wondering if you could give any information about the status of the crime-free housing ordinance, and if there will be any provisions for victims of domestic violence to prevent them from becoming homeless.
So our crime-free rental housing is already in place. So we have that already, and we've had it in place for a long time, and we haven't had any issues with it. The state, it's still up. The state House and state Senate both have bills to try and eliminate all crime-free rental housing ordinances, which would be a disaster for the village of Orland Park. And not just because of the village, but because it would be a disaster for the surrounding communities and the communities to the east that use crime-free. The crime-free rental housing is very, very important to them, and so so all of the mayors have been pushing back against the state because these ordinances work. For example, they were actually using an Orland Park case to say that these things are, that these laws prevent people from getting into homes. The problem is the case they were using that said this person was prevented getting into a home went through the process and the person stayed in the home. But they didn't bother to tell them that. So they got put into the process, which they said, well, they got put into the process and they got kicked out. No, they got put into the process and then they stayed in their house, but they forgot to tell them that part. So they basically told them this whole story and said, well, they got, then they were kicked out of their home. Well, no, they actually were not kicked out of their home. They actually went through the entire process that they're allowed to go through, and they stayed in their home. But they don't bother to tell them the actual facts of the case. So, and that's what and it's actually being pushed, surprisingly, by the real estate lobby. And it's because, and as I've talked to some real estate agents, it's like, well, it's because they're crappy agents that don't pay attention to who they're putting in as renters that want to just rent to anyone. So, and I think we have someone with some experience on the renting.
So what happens though is if somebody violates the Village Road Park crime-free housing addendum, something happens, right? It still goes to the board or the judge to review.
It goes through a judiciary process.
So it goes through a judiciary process. So they can be under a probationary period. It doesn't mean that the landlord has to evict, which can take 6 months anyways.
Right.
So they,
People who find themselves in that position, there is a due process. There is due process for that. So, and it's very effective. It really works for Orland Park. It really helps us a lot particularly in rental communities, but in the rental areas that are higher renters. But believe it or not, it helps a lot in some of the places where there's homes for rent, because sometimes those fly a little more under the radar. So, helps us a lot.
I don't know if this has been asked. 143rd Street being widened west of West Avenue.
So the question was about 143rd Street west of West Avenue, and is it being widened? It has not been asked today, but it's been asked a lot, and it's been talked about a lot for a long time. So dating back to probably 2000, the village engineered we paid for the engineering to widen, even though it's a state road, to widen the road all the way down to Will Cook. And the village does this a lot with state roads because the state doesn't actually do anything. And one of the ways that we get funding for projects, like even widening LaGrange before I got here, was by doing the engineering first. Southwest Highway, the work being done on it now, is because we pushed that and did the engineering. So there's a lot of things that we pay for to kind of kick the state in the butt to get them moving along. Now a lot of these projects, like the widening of 143rd, we get offsetting dollars from the feds. So we're part of a conference of mayors. We're several conference of mayors, but there's one. All of the communities in the Chicagoland area are part of a conference of mayors that handles the transportation dollars that come from the Chicagoland, the CMAP agency, the planning agency. So they get federal dollars, they divide it out, and our conference of mayors gives money to communities for various projects, and they score our projects. Now, the good news for Orland, we get an inordinate share of that money because we can match everything. And we will, anytime we get money from someone, we match it and get it done. Other communities aren't as fortunate where they can't necessarily do that. So we do that. So we've used a lot of these funds to help us engineer these projects. So where does this project sit today? Well, it is and has been since I've been mayor. It's been the #1 project, and even before I was mayor, it's the #1 project for the region to widen 143rd from West Avenue to Will Cook. Not just for us, for the region. The Southwest Conference of Mayors has made this their #1 project. Will County, even though it's not in Will County, has actually given what they call points. They've actually given some of their points that they have towards our project to get that widened because it's important for Will County as well. So it's a very, very important regional project. We have support from, 50 elected officials, every community around us, every community in the Southwest Conference, communities in Will County that all have signed letters of support for this project. And the state has it on their list of projects to do. The problem is the state still refuses to give funding to actually do it. So we broke the project into 3 pieces. Southwest Highway to West Avenue to Wolf Road, and Wolf Road to Will Cook. The most expensive part is Will Cook to, West Avenue to Wolf Road. And that's because of all the swampland that goes through there. So believe it, it's about a $75 million project. About 50 to 55 million of it is that section. The section from Wolf to Will Cook is actually shovel ready. We're as close as it can be to actually, we could put shovels in the ground next year on that project if we got funding. So we've been trying to secure funding. West Avenue to Southwest Highway, we were able to secure funding from the federal government as part of a program. So we got $7 million from them. The village has it programmed in 2026 to put $3.5 million in. So that intersection at Southwest Highway and 143rd will get fixed to having one light instead of two. So it'll fix that whole intersection and it'll widen it to West Avenue. So that part will get done. The rest of it we're still trying to get money for. So we keep applying for grants. The state has said if we get federal money towards it, they'll kick money into it, but we'll see. So we keep trying. Because that is the busiest portion of that road between 355 and 294. And the section from Bell to State that is also 3 lanes or 2 lanes, that's already been funded by Will County, and they have a project that's starting to widen that. You've probably seen the fight over that. Everywhere else but our section, all the way to 294, is 5 lanes. So it's and it's one of only 3 roads that connect 355 to 294. 159th, 143rd, and Ogden. Those are the only 3 roads that connect that. So that's why it's so important for that to get done. So we're working on it. It's high on our list. So the question was how that will affect the school, the historical school. First off, the historical school's been moved about 4 times. So it'll probably get moved. But I actually think the plan takes it into account and goes around it. But it's going to be widened to 5 lanes, basically all the way down. The right-of-ways, we already have easements. We're actually getting permanent right-of-way from hopefully at the next board meeting, and hopefully it'll get finalized by the end of the year. But finally, after 7 years, the quote nature center at 143rd and LaGrange, or that little triangle, that I don't know, did it die? Can you hear me? No? Okay. All right, I'll yell. So the 143rd, so Southwest Highway, that little, what they call the nature center, right? That, no one uses it. I mean, let's be real. It was, in my opinion, it wasn't a good use of money, but it wasn't a fight I could win when I got here. It was already kind of down the path. They were going to vote for it. So it's like, okay, let's put it in. The thing is, though, it's got a building on it that is in disrepair, but the outside of the building is good. It also has a giant wetland area that was donated to us, which is a great bird habitat and all of that. We don't have the skill set to maintain bird habitats in native areas, right? We have to hire someone to do that. Who has the capability of doing that? The Forest Preserve. And it's right next to McGinnis Slough, and they don't have any buildings for any offices or anything down here. So I approached them because they were my biggest client, actually, in my previous business. So I approached the guy that I knew there, and we talked about it, and he said, this would be a great site. And what we asked for in return is we asked for that right-of-way, that easement, we asked for permanent right-of-way. So it's permanent, and also making it a little bigger so that we've got all that we need. So again, back to widening 143rd, we're trying to do everything we can to get all the land needed, to get everything we need to do so we can move that project as fast as possible. We're also getting tree mitigation fees waived, about $250,000 with tree mitigation fees waived, and a couple other little things done. So we're getting a right-of-way, we're getting a piece of land, if you think to the west of Park School, off of West Avenue. That is a perfect place to bring buses in as opposed to where they're going in now. It's a lot safer. So we're acquiring that, so that can be done at the same time as the road, so we could do that. So that swap is after 7 years. something that seemed to me to be a no-brainer. 7 years, the forest preserve was very difficult. They kept wanting this, and I'm like, listen, you're getting a $5 million property. We're getting about $1 million back. But it's still win-win because everybody benefits because the right people have everything. So that swap just got approved by the Forest Preserve Board this week. So we will do it at the next board meeting, and then I think the deal gets finished in December because there's still a few things that have to get taken care of before that swap happens. But anyways, that's what we're doing there.
Just want to say I appreciate you as mayor, staff, administration, and the last 2 years. We all work as a village. Nothing's perfect, but we really appreciate all.
Well, thanks. Thanks. I appreciate it. I grew up here. I left when I was 17, and I came back with my family. It was a great place to be raised and a great place to raise my kids. So, and they're all gone now. So, but now hopefully we can continue to keep it, keep it a nice place to live. So, other questions, Joe?
This is just more of a statement. This seems to be a pretty good sample of the people that live in Orland Park, and the questions have been positive to neutral. But boy, when you go on social media, this is the worst place to live. And the question, especially like next door park and informed Illinois or Orland Park, I guess two questions. What is wrong with these people, and does it keep you up at night?
I don't know what is wrong with these people. I can't answer that question. There are some people, I will tell you, it's been pretty clear to me, based on, because I get anonymous texts from, and we know it's from them. They spend 24/7 thinking about me, which is kind of sad, actually, because there's a lot going on in Orland Park that's good. It doesn't keep me up at night. Maybe my first year it kept me up at night. At this point, it doesn't keep me up at night anymore. I don't really think about it. I stay off of some of those sites because they're just toxic. I have to pay attention to some of them just to see what's going on. But I guess the question I would always ask these people that are that way is, tell me one thing you like about Orland Park. Now, those of you who know me know I have a lot of differences with my predecessor, but you also know you've been around long enough to hear me say plenty of the things they did right. They did right with the water main project. They did right with the 143rd and making that a priority. They did a great job with our police, just like we have. So not everything was wrong, right? But if someone thinks everything is bad, then this is a personal issue. It has nothing to do with Orland Park or how things are run. And then the second question I would have to them, and whoever decides to run, is what would you do differently? Give us an idea, because I know, Joe, you've been around this, and some of you have seen these elections, and I've had two, but there's been four, two for me and two when I wasn't on and the trustees were on. And I can tell you the opponents I've had in all of those never talked about what they're going to do in Orland Park. All they did was trash what's been done. So what are you going to actually do? And you go back to my first campaign, I had, 5 pages, Joe, of this is what I want to accomplish. And everything on that list except for one has either been accomplished or we've moved the needle forward to getting it done. And the only one that's not done is actually a satellite police station at the mall. And it was an idea. I said, because at the time, the mall, everybody was attacking the mall. Heck, the previous mayor attacked the mall. Okay? We don't hear anything about the mall anymore because the mall's great. But part of it was leadership that keeps talking about the fact of all the good things here and how it is a safe mall. Can't have someone talking about how it's bad and wants to get rid of it and make the place, and this is really the economic engine of the village, right? But here's what I learned. I sat down with the chief of police my first week, and I talked about policing, and we talked about satellite police station at the mall, and he said, there's a security office at the mall. Our officers have 24/7 access to the security office, to the cameras. We always have someone here. Whether you see them or not, there's always someone at the mall, at least one officer at the mall, either inside, outside, and often more. We're not going to talk about all the strategies we use, but we recognize One, how many people come here, so there's where you're most likely to have issues, right? And I mean, where else are you going to have retail theft? The place where you've got the most retail, right? It makes sense, right? So, so we always have a presence here. And he goes, and we're 2 blocks away. He said, we essentially already have a satellite police station at the mall. And I said, that makes perfect sense. So, boop, off the list, right? So that's, I just ask people, what are your, what do you want to accomplish for the village? What do you think needs to be done? So, and I know all the good stuff that we've done. So that's kind of how I deal with it. It's one thing I would say, if you're on next door, get off. I mean, I've never seen more toxicity in my whole life of people that are just, I mean, it's the most toxic place I've ever been. And here's the interesting thing that for those of you who pay attention and know, is that in many cases, because I go on it occasionally because I hear about this or that and I look at it, there's 8 people, and it's really 2 people with 3 fake accounts, and they're basically arguing, they're basically slamming us from 3 different accounts. It's the same person. It's like 2 people. So it's, you just have to take that stuff with a grain of salt, and it is difficult, I mean, he brought up Inform Orland Park, and that seems to be the latest attack site. So I'll just run down the, kind of the latest and greatest. So it was an attack on, the signs that we supposedly renamed the buildings, which we didn't. So that was one. It was attack on the project at 159th and 94th Avenue, which ended up being voted down. It was, and none of them came to speak, by the way, at the meeting to have issues. They just attacked. So attacking about the concerts and attacking about nobody attends. Then when we had a thunderstorm and we couldn't let anybody in, then it was there's too many people attending and there's not, and the lines are too long. So which one is it, right? So it's always something, And then it was the attack over George, the village manager, with his contract and his renewal and all of that. There was all that. And it's like, hey, we have employees. We have to deal with employees. And at the end of the day, for those of you who are there for that, is the village manager has an automatic renewal part of his contract. Well, given that it's in October, we felt that it's inappropriate for us to lock the next mayor into a contract with the village manager, because it may not be me. I might not be voted in. So the next mayor should, what happened to me is they hired a village manager after I was elected, before I was sworn in. And I was stuck, and that person tried to obstruct me for 2 years and didn't work with me. Even with our form of government, which shifts a lot of power to the village manager, I can tell you, if the village manager and the mayor aren't on the same page, it's really toxic. So I said, we're not going to do that. And George was well aware of that in March with his review, that we were not going to do that. So, and then, he's free to make whatever decisions he needs to make, but he knew about this in March. So, and that's, we told him that, and we said, hey, we're not going to renew it, but you're still going to be here. We'll renegotiate your contract in April. By the way, at the same time, no one else in Orland Park except for the village manager has a contract. Everybody, all of his employees are just at-will employees, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So, so that was kind of our position on it. But we weren't going to lock the next board, because the board hires the village manager. We're not going to lock that mayor, that board, into a village manager that they don't want to work with. That doesn't make any sense. So.
Well, I can attest to getting off of next door. Anytime I see award-winning columnist, sit right out. That's the guy we're talking about.
Yeah.
On a different subject, and it's probably nothing you can add to it, but the southwest corner of 135th and Harlem. I don't even think that's Orland Park. I heard this Doris meeting, but it's in
The southwest corner of 135th and Harlem. Oh yeah, you're talking about that's not us.
Yeah.
But
is that Forest Preserve or?
No, the southwest corner, that's the building that's there. That is Palis?
That would be Orland jurisdiction, I believe.
No, it's not Orland. It's not Orland.
It would be Payless, but it's county.
Yeah, it's county. It's unincorporated.
I believe that was annexed by Oak Forest
I-
a couple of years ago.
I'm not sure if it was or not. I don't know. It's not ours. That I know. So I thought it was unincorporated because it's all surrounded by forest preserve, so it would make sense that it was unincorporated.
It was a few years ago that there was a call there that we responded to because we were closer, but county came over and took over the call. But that was pre-COVID, so I don't know if it's changed.
And that goes back to the annexation stuff. So I'll hear this from people who are like, well, we don't use your services. Well, actually you do. Because what he just said, we're the first responders on it. It isn't Cook County sheriffs that are there. They may take over the investigation, but it's our officers that are going there in the heat of the moment where they might get shot. They might, they're the ones that have to deal with that. We deal with that. So, and anyone who Orland Park surrounds, you got to get to your house. So you're driving on our roads and our parks. Like I said, we don't have a separate park district, so they're not being taxed by the park district, right? But they're not being taxed by us. So they're basically free to use all our parks, and they're not contributing. So that's another reason why we're doing all these annexations. And we really need to clean up our borders. It makes it a lot easier for us to know whose house we can go to and all that, and not have these jurisdictional issues. Yep.
I was curious, since the largest portions of the schools, how the population of our schools has risen or fell, and how that money would be allocated per child. Is it high per kid?
So,
And should we, if we're gonna be paying all that, as the population of
So the comment in question, the comment was about the tax video that I put out. I don't know how many of you saw the tax video? I highly recommend watching it. I think it was pretty informative about how the taxes work. And then since the schools are the highest portion, what's happened with their population, how is that being spent? I don't know how it's being spent because it's a separate taxing body. I will tell you the population of District 135 since 2005 is down 8%. The population of District 230 is down, I think, a little bit more than that. It's more than that at Sandburg, but it's higher at Staggs, so it's kind of like, it's a balance, but it's down also. So they're down very significantly from their highs. They're down so much in District 230, actually, they had to do some rebounding because Andrew had fallen below 2,000 students, which makes it hard for them to offer everything. So the question is, the question becomes well, why are we adding to schools if we have less students? Well, in my opinion, this is just my opinion as a taxpayer, they added stuff to those schools because they didn't want to do new boundaries. We have to reboundary every 10 years or so because demographics change. By adding to the schools, they don't have to upset anybody by moving them from one school that's gotten full to Centennial and Meadow Ridge who had gotten empty. So those used to be full because of all the stuff to the south. Well, all of those kids have aged. People haven't sold their houses yet, so that's how things shift. And so you always have to reboundary. Like District 230 had to do it. They reboundaried the Oak Forest School District to Andrew. It used to go to Sandburg. So that's stuff they have to do. So in my opinion, they spent that money so they didn't have to do that. But that's just, I don't know all of the details, but that's kind of what I see. But if you haven't seen that tax video, so while we're on property taxes, believe me, mine went up 31%. I have a trustee that went up 41%. I think the lowest anyone's went up was 21%. But when I look at my bill, and Orland Park levied less money, we have a smaller levy of almost $500,000. Okay? Well, if we levy less money, how am my Orland Park portion went up 19%. I'm like, how can this be? And not only that, we've grown. So we've got more businesses, we've got more residences, so we should have, so I don't know, please go watch the video. I'll try and really summarize it a little bit. Basically, we levy a fixed dollar amount, so it's a pie. This year's pie is smaller than last year's pie. Your house is a slice of the pie. Everyone's property is a slice of the pie. And you take your proportion. So your size of your slice is based on your value versus the total value. Okay? Well, if there's more slices of the pie and the pie is smaller, how did our taxes for the village go up? Well, I'll tell you how. The assessor shifted the tax burden to homeowners. So in Cook County, the North and Northwest Taxing District, so there was 726 million, I think, roughly, of new taxes, new property tax, which sounds like a ton of money, but really it's a little less than 4% increase in property taxes across all of Cook County. So that's all the schools, all of everything. North and Northwest suburbs went up 4.1% on average. Chicago went up 2.85%. And the South and Southwest suburbs went up 9.35%. So the burden was shifted to the South and Southwest suburbs, number one. Then inside the South and Southwest suburbs, they look at 4 different groups. They look at commercial, industrial, multifamily, and single family. Commercial went down 12.5%. Industrial went up 1%. Multifamily went down 7.5%. Single family homeowners went up 15%. They shifted, the Cook County assessor shifted it squarely on him. He shifted the burden to homeowners. He ran on that. He said he was going to do that. He did exactly what he said he would do. So that's why your taxes have gone up. But if you go watch that tax video, it's on the Village Facebook. You can link on the YouTube. It's on the Village YouTube channel. Just go to videos. So I think it's the second one. You can't miss it. Click on it. It's about, 8 minutes, 9 minutes long? But breaks it all down, has charts, numbers. I think it does a pretty good job of explaining it. Right. So the question is there something visible that you can see? Well, you can pull down the information like I did, but you're not going to get sent that information. I tried to take the data that I could find that is out there and put it in a format that people could understand. Because the Cook County tax system, property tax system, is incredibly complex. I tried to simplify it to where this is kind of the basics of how it works. But they make it complex for a reason. So that makes hard for people to challenge it.
And even though that commercial portion went down, valuations on these properties went sky high.
Right.
So they're paying way more tax.
Well, no, they're not. They're actually paying less taxes. Most of it. They're paying. Well, some of them went up, but that's the whole point. Is some went up, some went down. They picked winners and losers basically. But yeah, assessments went up everywhere. But if everyone's assessment goes up the same percentage, you won't see a big change in your property tax bill. It might go up 3 or 4%. I mean, all of our taxing bodies in Orland Park, the highest levy increase was District 135 at 7.8%. Most of them were between 4.5% and 5.5%. Okay, so how can our property taxes go up 31%? And the village actually lowered ours by 3.44%. So how does this go up? Now the village is a really small portion of your tax, it's like 5.6%. It's very small. So we don't have a huge impact. And that's because we collect sales tax and other things. So
How about the schools?
it got shifted to other places, yeah, for sure. And our schools too. I mean, the state's supposed to fund the majority of their budget, and they fund 8%. Chicago Public Schools, it's almost 30% that they get. So, our schools have a challenge too, because where else do they get their revenue?
And I guess my question, we talked a lot about, you talked a little bit about a lot of things today. For people of Orland Park that couldn't make it, what would you like for me to highlight in terms of what they missed? Because,
So the question is, what should I highlight of what people of Orland Park may have missed in this meeting? I think the critical thing, about Orland Park is what I said at the beginning, which is the town is really running very, very, very well. I mean, things are really good here. The crime, and I don't want to rehash the entire state of the village, but our crime, we've been tracking it for 29 years. The last 5 years are the lowest 5 years of index crimes we've ever had. We're the lowest of towns bigger than 50,000, the lowest in violent crime in the state for like 4 or 5 straight years. This mall is the safest mall in Chicagoland. That's just on safety. you look at our roads. When I got here, we evaluated our roads in 2018. Roads they rate literally every road between 0 and 100. Every street in town. They go through with a laser and measure it all, okay? And then we have like 250 road areas. We aggregate it and we say, okay, these are the best, these are the worst, and that's how we go about fixing them, right? When I arrived, the rating on those was 47, which is fair. So 0 to 20 is very poor, 20 to 40 is poor, 40 to 60 is fair, 60 to 80 is good, and 80 to 100 is very good. Over 40% of our roads were less than 40, and it was 47, so it was fair, and then the bottom part of fair. Now it's at 59. With the plan we have in place for the next 3 years, it's going to be at 68. So we're going to go from fair to good, and 70 is considered kind of best in class. We'll almost be there already. So we've made all of those changes, and I think anyone who's, there may be some subdivisions we haven't got to yet, but by and large, our roads look great, and we've done a lot of our roads. You take our ponds, for example. We evaluated all of our ponds. We have 300 and some ponds. And everything that was categorized as a 5, which was the worst, or a 4, we started with the 5s. We're trying to get them all to a 3 or above. That'll all be done by next year. Look at our parks. Our parks we had evaluated in 2019. The average rating on a 1 to 4 scale was 2.35. We were fixing one every 2 years. We have 64 parks. That's 128 years to get through all your parks. Obviously, that way of doing things doesn't work. So that's what I walked into. I said, hey, how about we go into the areas, we identify the stuff that's not fixed right, and we focus on those. So we've actually gotten into 35 or 36 of our 60 parks, and our average rating this last year was 3.5 out of 4. And then we also have done Centennial Park West and Schuessler Park and John Humphrey. And we've done it's a great place to live. We have great roads, we have great schools, we have great parks. We have a great mall and economy. We're still getting companies. You have Silver Cross moving here. They just came here. Steinhoffel's is coming here. Pete's Fresh Market. All of these things that are coming and continue to come. Where else does that happen in the Chicagoland region? It's not. I mean, we're seeing all of that here. So the mall's fully leased, right? Except for Sears, everything is leased. So we're doing fantastic. So I think that's the message. And take stock of all the good stuff you have. And there's a lot of bad going on. And we see it. But you take stock of all the good things that are here, because I think relative to Cook County and relative to the state, we are an oasis of positive things and good government.
I just read a statistic this week. In the last year, 235,000 residents and businesses fled the state. And we've got more coming here. What was something that the old deputies like you guys do?
Yeah, so the comment was 235,000 people and businesses have left the state, yet we're still seeing increasing population. And he mentioned the Denny site. So the Denny site here, we just approved a drive-through Portillo's on the Denny site. So that's going to be fantastic. Lots of traffic to the mall, lots of traffic to here. And the issue we have around the mall and other properties, now the MWRD, who handles stormwater, they require all the stormwater storage to be on site. So any of these small sites like the Denny site become very, very difficult to redevelop. So the nice thing about drive-through, it's not a big footprint, so they can do all that. So I'm really excited to have that, and that's gonna kill it here. It's gonna be great. And I know people are concerned about traffic on the Ring Road. It's got basically a double drive-through like Chick-fil-A has now. And you recall Chick-fil-A, how bad it was. Well, since they've done their revamp of their drive-through lanes, we haven't had the problem of it going out into the drive aisles anymore. So, what other questions do we have? No other questions?
No.
I know, well, you had a couple. You came back, so I'll touch on the Centennial Park West Amphitheater. Mosquito abatement, that's the mosquito abatement district. They've been contacted. Up until actually movie night the other night, we haven't had a mosquito problem. Movie night, we had a mosquito problem. So we're aware of that. The radio, we don't have a radio station or any of that, so we don't have that. And we also probably wouldn't want to broadcast it because then people don't come and pay to see it. Right. Well, we want people to come out, so, right. The amphitheater concrete, basically, well, one, you can't seal it yet anyways, but all the specs on that are so that it lasts a long time. The ADA drop-off is right here. We have ADA drop-off right there. ADA parking is right here.
They weren't always letting you through to drop off?
Yeah, I mean, I live there, so they should be letting you through. Yeah, I mean.
She wasn't going to let us in through the main entrance there, but she did.
Well, so they don't drive into the main entrance, the drop-off is here. But we're changing some of the traffic patterns, so now it's going to be one way, and you're going to drop off right here, and this will actually be blocked off with police. So entrance to the parking lot's going to be over here. Exit's going to be here. It's going to be one way, and then you drop off for the ADA, and then you circle back around and park. So all learnings, because we've had 2 of these concerts now. And then adding the screens, that is in the future plans, but it's not a this year thing.
Where's the paid parking going?
So the paid parking is here. So the question is, where's the paid parking? Okay, so overall, like I said, we have 3,300 parking spots, okay? So over here is going to be ADA, that's free. Also is going to be VIP, so VIP is really vendors, so they can get to their sites, and maybe a few VIPs, but there's not many. So that'll be here. Then there's still all this other parking lot here. That's where the paid parking is. It's on this side. So people who want to park close, we know that there's a lot of people in Orland Park that will pay $10 to park close. So it's a way to offset some of our costs. And we still have 2,600 or 2,700 free spots on the other side, plus all the Andrew Corporation spots, which I haven't even counted. So we still have a lot of free parking there too. And again, if you're ADA, you can park over here for free anyways. What's that? The shuttles are going to be at the Andrew Corporation. You can't walk. We're not going to allow people to walk across the street. You have to take shuttles. For ADA parking, we're going to have assistance for anyone who parks ADA to get here. Certainly for Taste, and we're going to see how it works out for Taste. Right now, we're not planning for the 17th concert because we got the Taste from the 2nd through the 4th. So that's kind of we're seeing how that goes. That'll have bigger crowds than the concert will. The last concert, it's not Pat Benatar. It's not going to have as many people there. Probably 2,000 to 3,000. So shouldn't be that big of a deal. About 4,000. About 4,000. And the challenge was that we got hit with a thunderstorm, right? One, she wouldn't allow us to open the gates any earlier than 6. There's contracts involved here that, believe it or not, are challenging. And then right when we were supposed to open them, we had thunderstorms, so we couldn't let anyone in. So I heard about same thing happened in Tinley Park, and a lot of people didn't even get in to see the first one. I've had that happen when I've been there. I've had to leave a concert because of the lightning, and then couldn't get back in. And we just said, it's an outdoor concert. Stuff happens. But we learned from it. It's the first off, we had a worst case scenario at our biggest concert, and we still got everyone in to see the concert. Barely, but we got everyone in to see the concert, and we learned from it. We just have to add a few lines, and we can do that relatively easy. If we didn't have that problem, we wouldn't have had that issue, but that just happened. Yeah, so she was talking about how it sells out in New Lenox locally. And I think as people learn more about it and come out and see the site, I mean, you get to bring your own food, you get to bring your own drink, and you're there from, now Pat Benatar, she would only allow one opening act too. Typically, that's the other thing. Typically, we're open at 4:30, you know, we start at 4:30, so we open the gates at 3:30, so you got all day to get people in. This case, we opened at 6 because that was part of the contract. So one of the things we're going to do with future contracts is really push to have 2 opening acts, so we have a little bit more time to do that. But, you know, I mean, for $25, or even if the price goes up a little bit, $35 or whatever it is, to go see music from 4:30 to 10:30, where you can bring in your own food and drink. I mean, I don't know how you get a better deal than that, and it's a very beautiful venue. So, and then the other question on the venue was porta potties. We're not going to build permanent bathrooms for a couple reasons. One, there's the dollar value to build just what we had for the last concert would cost $3 million. That's 25% of the whole venue. Okay, then you have a huge footprint that you have to deal with, right? So where are we going to put them? Well, the only place we really can put them is back here. I promise you, we'd hear nothing about complaints about how people had to walk all the way back here, because the lines for the porta potties were here. There were no lines at the porta potties over here because no one wanted to walk that far. So, but the nice thing about porta potties, one, they get delivered that day, so they're clean. It's not like the old days where they're sitting there for a week or whatever. These things get dropped off the day of the concert, so they're clean. But we can easily add more, depending on the size of the concert, or the taste, or whatever. We can also configure them in different places. Like, as you can imagine, for the concert where we only have like 7 vendors, it'll be a lot different than when this whole thing's filled with vendors, where we put the porta potties, right? So where we put them, we can change them, we can move them. So a lot of things we can do with that, depending on if we're doing a market in the park or whatever. So we can always up that. Once you put fixed ones in there, you can't change them. So so that's kind of the plan on that. And we know after the last one, although to be fair, I think the line was like 4 or 5 minutes long, which I'm like, it's a concert. That's pretty short. But we can add more and make the lines less. Of course, we're going to add some women-only ones, because that was a complaint. I promise you, no matter what we do with the women-only ones, but you'll have 15 empty ones, and the women will stand for 10 minutes to be in the women-only ones. So we're not going to be able to win. So we're going to do the best we can. The what? With the what? Oh, so the status of the Veterans Center. So the Veterans Center, so there's a couple things going on here. So the Veterans Center is going to basically build there's a new athletics garage going back here. The garage was literally falling down. So if you go back there now, you'll see it's gone. So they're building a new athletics garage, and then there's a house right here with a deck on it. That's where the Veterans Center is moving. So it's been completely gutted. And as far as the interior walls are real easy. So the interior walls have been gutted so that they can reconfigure the interior walls to the new configuration for the Veterans Center. So it's on West Avenue. West Avenue right by John Humphrey. So, and the nice thing is that they also have a deck, which they don't have now. It's a much better site. This is actually a slightly bigger area for their meetings, and it also has a little kitchen. So it's an improvement. I know a lot of the veterans were complaining, they were yelling at me because they don't like change. But at the end of the day, this is better, and that other building was beyond its useful life like 6 years ago. So this thing has about another 20 years of life to it, so at least. So that's why we're doing it. But that should be this September. We should be moving. We're looking to have a day where the community comes and helps move stuff from the one Veterans Center to the other. They're right now identifying what stuff they want moved and what stuff we want to put into museum storage. So, can everybody still hear me? Good.
Would you like some sippy water?
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions? So the question is, when do we anticipate the police training facility to open? So we've broken ground on the police training facility. We anticipate it to be substantially complete by kind of March, April of next year, and probably fully moved into by the summer of next year, roughly. And then the other thing that's up here, that pictures that we didn't talk about, this is Dugan Park. This is where the old library was, the cultural center. That building needed about $6 million worth of work. Not very functional building, so you'll see that building's no longer there. And the plan is, starting next year, is to rebuild the tennis courts that are here and extend the parking lot a little bit. And there'll be 2 tennis courts, 10 pickleball courts, lighted. So we'll have lighted pickleball courts. Redo the soccer field. There's a field there now. And then keep the baseball field. And then we'll also take the dirt and we'll make another sledding hill over here. So that's the plan for Dugan Park. We already have received, I believe we've already received a $650,000 grant towards that. So anytime we can get money from other sources to pay for some of our capital, we try and get the projects done. Any other questions? Tom, no questions? No. So, by the way, this is Tom Dubelby. He was our interim village manager after our last village manager left. So he was a former trustee, and he also ran the veterans. He ran our veterans program and part of our veterans commission. So does a lot of work for the village still. So who? There's no one from planning. What's your planning question?
Well, I don't think you know. The old Chase location.
Yeah, I don't know what's going in there.
It just the hearing was just.
Yeah, I don't know what's going in there. It's I just don't know. Yeah.
On behalf of the mall, we appreciate you. We appreciate the Open Parks Police Department, Fire Department, the village administration. This is a very dynamic place. We've got a lot going on here. We have that every year, and partnerships with all here is very strong. We appreciate it. There's, like I said, there's a lot going on, and a lot of resources dedicated to the mall.
So Jeff was saying, you probably couldn't hear him, he was thanking us and the police department and the fire department and our relationship at the mall. He's the manager of the mall here. They add about 15 businesses every year. We have a great relationship. The mall's thriving, it's doing well, and it's a top 1% traffic mall in the country, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So top 1% traffic mall in the country. Like I said before, we do track the safety of the mall, and it is the safest mall in Chicagoland. It's safer than Oak Brook. It's safer than Woodfield and Old Orchard. It has been actually since I got here, but it was never touted. It was never pushed out there because somebody wanted to get rid of it, which would be the silliest thing ever. Get rid of it to put townhomes. Imagine what this, I mean, you're losing all this taxes for residential. That's a nightmare. So, you know, it's going to be one of the, so I've talked to a lot of people. It will be one, malls, yes, a lot of malls are going away, but not all malls are going away. And this will be a surviving mall in Chicagoland. I think one of 4 for sure that will survive. And so we need to make sure that it stays thriving. And we see that it is. We'd love to get the Sears done. We do have an idea for the Sears. I'm crossing my fingers that we can get that done, but we have a very recalcitrant owner currently. So, you know, we have to just try and work with that owner to try and make that happen. So.
Thank you both.
So. And we thank them all for hosting this, and a great opportunity for you to see all the stuff, if you haven't been in here, to see that the mall is quite nice. So, any other questions? Great. Well, thank you all for coming. And if you have anything specific, Bonnie can take the address and the information and follow up with you.